All right, so we're here to talk about this, the SolidWorks Schematic Professional. Now, mind you, there are other products that we also carry, which is like a standard schematic. There is the Professional Schematic, and then of course you also have the uh, 3D electrical that can be added. So that being the case, just keep that in mind here. So obviously, whenever we're talking about schematics, I tend to talk electrical because I'm electrical. But there is that possibility that with those electrical, you could have the capabilities of having, okay, your control panels, whether they be high voltage or low voltage. You could be dealing with harnessing, whether it be inside aircraft or inside vehicles. You could also be dealing with just very large control panels. And a lot of this is what, me as an electrical engineer, what I would end up talking with. But everybody seems to forget that who else does schematics would be your hydraulics. Lots of hydraulics going on. Schematics are necessary, especially when you start getting into the large manifolds. Same thing goes with pneumatics. Between those two, you end up having quite extensive amounts of schematics. Our electrical package or schematic package will actually handle all those. And then, of course, if you have heard, we also are now carrying a new package called PCB. And with PCB, you can create your own schematic for the PC boards, or you can actually use PCB connector if you are doing Altium Designer and want to bring it in. And of course, we've also got the SircuitWorks if you are using another CAD package for your printed circuit boards. And so it just helps in the collaboration there. So for documentation purposes, obviously having a tool that will handle electric, hydraulic, pneumatic, all as one package makes it a nice, you're not having to add modules if you decide to do specific areas. So it becomes quite easy to go from one section to the other as well. I'm going to go through 4 little sections here: design, project management, reports, and collaboration. I'm going to stick in just our schematic package. I'm not going to get into the 3D realm right now. If that's something that you're interested in, please let us know with the feedback that I'll present at the last slide. You can just send us an email and let us know that, yes, you're interested in the 3D electrical, and I can present another webinar. But we're going to stay in these 4 sections, and I'm going to talk maybe about 10 minutes into each section. So please feel free to ask any questions that you've got. Just go ahead and put it in the question section there over in your webinar. But let's start with the design. So the design, what I'm talking about here is just creating schematics. So when we're talking about creating these schematics, there are a number of different things that you can do based off of the fact that the software is intelligent. Being that it's intelligent, there is an SQL database, which you don't see, but it is driving the software in the background. Now, it is controlled by MS SQL. It is not an Access. Microsoft Access. We upgraded a couple of years back from that just because of stability. We actually wanted to make sure that the users were not having issues with stability, and so we had changed with that. So let me just jump right into the software and show you how some of this works. Now, if you use a standard CAD package, drawing things becomes very tedious, is probably the best way to explain it, because of course you're probably doing things like trimming and stretching to get things to work real quick. Here you can actually utilize things that we have here, which is our wire manager. Notice that I've got electrical or hydraulic or pneumatic that I can draw with. So it's not like it's a separate package. You can actually utilize this here. And I can simply select what type of wires I want to draw and simply come over here and select it and draw it. Everything is already matched up as far as what I'm looking for, even coming as far as like our symbols manager. You can look at it here, but there is a full library in the background. So I could look for a motor. And when I'm looking for this motor, I will come up with whatever symbols I have named as motor. Notice I'm going to drop this before the end of the wires, but it automatically trims everything up. It's already giving me some information here as far as my location. It's picking up that it's sheet number 6 and I'm on row 14. And I can do just some simple stuff here. Let's go ahead and grab a 3-pole disconnect. Notice when I say 3, anything that I've got that is 3 now comes up in my symbols manager. So if I wanted to go ahead and add a motor starter set of contacts, the minute I drop it on these wires, it then breaks the wires. I'm not having to trim them. I'm not having to stretch them. They are automatically identified as separate. Now, of course, with the color is not so much for anybody other than the user, because it makes it a whole lot quicker for you to see that the greens are the grounds, or maybe the blues are the neutrals, or red is phase 1. So it makes it real quick and easy to do this type of stuff. I'll go ahead and I am going to grab a disconnect now, and just grab that and put that in here. When I do, I am going to change this now. When I drop the symbol in, if I look at the properties, what we have here is the capability of knowing what's happening in our system. I may have already drawn some of this stuff in another area. If I haven't, I can easily change what I am looking for. So maybe I don't want a queue here. Maybe I want it to be a disconnect. Great. I can also add things like manufacturers. Notice that it already is showing me from my circuitry that I've been developing with this connector that I need 3 circuit breaker contacts. So I can actually search into our database here, and this database, you can actually look for many manufacturers. Those manufacturers are all throughout the nation and actual global here. And then I can just find one that actually meets up. Now for me, rather than searching through all these, I'm going to look for a circuit type of 3. And the minute I highlight one, notice that it now is giving me a visual indicator. I can go ahead and select that to make it part of the part. And now it is part here. Notice the visual indicators here, which is great. Let's see, what else do I need to do here? I'm not quite sure why it's not giving me an OK. I probably did something wrong, so let me try that one more time, because that should have worked. Go back into that symbol property. I may have already created it. I want to go ahead and search for it. So let's see if I've got it. 0614 DISC. Do I have it? Oh, look, there it is. It looks like it was already created. That's why it wouldn't give me the OK. It was located in this chassis mount here, so I can simply highlight it. Notice that I'm getting a preview. It actually is showing me where it's at. So I've got that as set up. In fact, there is a different manufacturer here. This is a GV2 instead of the one I selected. And so it will automatically bring that type of information in. I can go ahead and also create some relevance here. This symbol, the contacts, I went ahead and actually said that it was this relay. Instead, maybe I want it to be the coil of a relay that I've already done. Let's see what we've got for those coils. And I've got one there for the motor starter already, and it's being used here. If I look, I can also see that it is also showing at a specific area here on this section. I also see one here. All right, let's go ahead and select that. Great. No, I see why. 814, this should have been 820. Have to change that because I messed up one more time here. Let's check to see if there's one for 820. 820, notice that I am no longer using the 3 poles. It's this one here that I want to go ahead and add to. So it's a different one. And if I highlight even this, it will actually show me that. All right, I can go ahead and do some pretty quick things here. I'm going to go ahead and if you've ever used circuitry before where you're having to search through previous projects to find your circuit that you may have used used once before, but you want to try and use it again, we have a thing called macros. And when I look for a macro, I can actually add a power supply here that I've already created in one of my previous projects. Notice that I can search for it very quickly if I know what I'm actually grabbing. And so I can simply just grab this and drop this right here. It's going to give me a nice idea as far as if I want to keep or replace the existing marks. So that way I don't have to worry about any of this. Let's go ahead and just finish that up. And notice I get a circuit right away. So I'm not having to search through projects to actually find that type of stuff. So it becomes quicker to actually do that. Wire numbering. Wire numbering, I know, is something that's absolutely miserable to do. Absolutely miserable. You can do things like adding wire numbers just by doing a quick one-button click. I consider it to be like a Staples Easy button. Notice right here, all I have to do is go to Number New Wires, and it will number all the wires in the entire project. I now have them for all the three-phase, and even over here where I've got that contact, if I go to that component, and let's see here, I am just going to use the go-to statement. Notice I have this hyperlink. I can actually go to the different sheets. So if I open up 820 here, it takes me directly to that. So here are the wire numbers here that I am actually utilizing. Now we've got some cool stuff going on in 17, which is another webinar that I'll be putting on here in about what is it, November 15th, if you're interested in seeing something along that. Notice here I've got the cross-reference. This is the cross-reference that is referring to this motor starter. If I add a contact, just a simple, normally open contact, I will grab that real quick here and show you what I'm referring to. Let me grab that here, and I'm going to make that 820 also. So let's grab that one and assign it to 820. 0820, do a search for it. There we go. And I'll say OK. Notice what happened to the cross-reference. The minute I move it, even if it's to another area, notice it is automatically picking up the row. If I were to change that and put that anywhere, it will then update automatically, so I'm not having to jump back and forth between sheets and making sure that those contacts were actually updated so that somebody actually knew that. Just the headaches with auditing that you end up doing is just absolutely miserable, and I hate seeing people actually having to struggle through that anymore just because it is so quick and easy to do now. Even to the point of adding terminals and things along that line. So maybe I would add a set of terminals here. And if I add those terminals, maybe I'm going to add them to the existing X1. So if I search for X1 here, let me grab that. I've already got a terminal strip that I'm adding it to. Perfect. Say OK. Now I can go ahead and add a cable. Even if this cable, I mean, half of this stuff just becomes so tedious when you're trying to design, and nobody wants to actually spend that much time working on it. Oh, I've got all kinds of filters here. So location 1, I'm not even sure where I put that one. I think it's in the top assembly. All right. Well, my time is up to talk about this section, so I will begin again here in a moment. Let's jump back to the PowerPoint, and let me talk about the fact that you can have reduced design time because you have the capability of all this extra user-friendly type interaction to do the software where you're not having to do stretching and pulling and all that good fun stuff. Dennis, did you have anything you wanted to add, or did you just want to jump in the poll?
Sure. No, just a couple of summary points. Like you mentioned, a lot of automation tools that you'll find inside of the electrical package. And give us a sense of where you're coming from today. Let me launch this while I continue to wrap up here on this subject. What type of tool are you using today to create your schematics? Give us a sense of where you stand with your applications today. You've seen Sherry show a lot of automation as far as creating wires, looking for previously designed schematic symbols, component symbols, catalog information for manufacturers. As she noted, a lot of that work gets pushed off because it's difficult to have access to the information as you're going through and doing your design work. With SOLIDWORKS Electrical, our goal is to create an all-inclusive environment so you don't have to bounce around to different areas and automate those tasks that are kind of time-consuming and annoying but can lead to problems down the road. So with that, let me launch a little bit of this, close this poll out, and I'll share that. So you can see kind of an equal split between the folks that are using something 2D CAD or a specialized like the electrical solution that are out in the market today. Sherry, with that, turn it back over to you.
All righty. All right, so let's get right into the second section then. Let's get into this project management. And what I'm referring to here is not project management as far as your resources with personnel. It's not dealing with timelines. I'm talking about the actual componentry that you have available to you and how it's being designed, because a lot of, shall we say, existing softwares, you end up getting forced into needing to jump into another third-party software or a piece of paper to keep track of those cross-references or for your purchase devices. What we have going on is as a component is numbered. So let's look at this motor here. This motor is 614M. Actually, I'm going to, yep, that looks fine. I'm going to look at that device. Now we have a component tree here. This component tree will allow me to select things like, if you're dealing with the SOLIDWORKS world, you have assemblies. So consider locations of these devices to be whether you are selecting in a specific assembly or sub-assembly. So here, of course, I'm dealing with a control panel. And with that control panel, I have both a door and a subplate. But I also have things like this pallet dispenser. I also have more conveyors. I also have a top assembly. So I can actually create sub-assemblies if I'm ever dealing with the 3D environment to be able to start taking it and coordinating it with the mechanical department as far as what all these identities are. So I'm going to go ahead and just tell it that it is in this pallet. Not the pallet dispenser here. There's that one. Let's go to other conveyors. There we go. And say that it is in that section there. Now, it's also telling me that I cannot say okay. So that's kind of telling me that I may have this motor somewhere else in that list. So let me actually look and see what we've got. I don't see one here. Oh, there it is right there. All right. This device is not actually, you notice right here, it says that it's in other conveyors, and it also has a device already attached to it for Leroy Somer. Again, those devices are part of our library. Our library is pretty extensive as far as what you would like to see or get manufacturer's parts from. You can get a lot more from our electrical content portal where you can download or ask for content. Which is kind of a nice aspect to that. So I'm going to go ahead and change this motor to be that 614 since it happens to be down here. And let me just grab that real quick here and say okay. And there it is. So what that's giving you when you can't say okay, is giving you that highlight to notify you immediately that there's actually a problem. And it's most likely a user problem, just so that you understand that it's one of the ways that the software helps audit and check things for you. Um, so you end up having some very nice capabilities without even realizing it. Let me look at some of these um, different areas that we have here. So we have different classifications. These classifications will allow you to find your symbols very quickly in the manager. But notice that you can also do things like importing DWG files. So if you've got those other softwares that you are using for your existing CAD, you can actually bring those in through the software, and it will recognize some of the attributes. You may have to do some slight modification to them if you don't know which attribute is which, but then you can actually use those in the software. You can also do things like bringing in existing pages. You can bring in either just by opening up a page if you want to do a copy paste from existing projects, and then you can make them macros, or you can do a number of things. But we also have an import-export tool, which will also bring in a set of DWG files. And what that will end up doing is giving you that capability of adding more information here. So notice I've got a reference documents here. Everybody has to create those manufactured part PDFs that you bring in for the devices that you add. I know when I worked for the big three, I always had to create 3 binders, and those 3 binders would have all the PDF manuals for all those devices. But things that you can also add to this would be things like an Excel spreadsheet for maybe the parameters of your frequency drives. It could also be like the troubleshooting manual that you utilize for this specific module. I know when we dealt with the frequency drives, that was always the one that was needed. And of course, the electricians had them locked up in their boxes, so you could never actually utilize them. But that was a long time ago. I try not to think about those days. But anyway, so you've got some great things here as this project management. We have a number of different libraries that are available here, including 2D footprints. So of course, when you start working with your circuit breakers, you can come up with either your own, or you can come up with one of the defaults. Now, what's nice about this is you don't need a footprint in order to actually utilize a module. The way it works is that you have the capability under this manufacturer that you can come in here, and let me edit it real quick to show you. You can add either, if you ever do decide to go into the 3D environment, you can add the 3D model that will be used. You can also add the width, height, and depth. What this will do is take those 3D models or the 2D models and adjust them to the proper scaling, so that when you start doing a control panel or any other device for that matter, whether it be an HMI, a junction box, any of those types of situations, those are already going to be drawn to scale for you. So that when you drop things in, it's going to be just a matter of dropping and placing. And if you're working with a 3D model, that becomes real quick, because of course now you're dealing with those with the mating. And if you've got SolidWorks, the two will work definitely in conjunction with each other. So we also have this really nice identity here that you can actually search for components. So if I am looking for something specific, say maybe I am looking for that mark of that 0614 and everything that is there. Notice what it does. It's bringing in the disconnect here. So if I would have actually searched here first, I would have found that I already had the disconnect and I already would have had the motor. And it's showing you in what locations these are. So it's giving you some nice search tools so that you don't have to do a whole lot of scrolling, a lot less mouse clicks. If it's a description you're looking for, any one of these filters will actually work for you. So let me jump back here to the PowerPoint. All right, so with that, you end up having a more simplified project management. You're not having to get out of your software to go to Excel or write the usage down or create a list. I know a lot of people that are still doing just a pad of paper to track all of their componentry and did they assign all of those. I mean, could you imagine you're probably having to count how many terminals you are utilizing and making sure that you've got the right count there, but I can show you a little bit more about that when we get into the reports. So speaking of that, Dennis, would you like to put up the next poll?
Yep, we're going to have a couple polls here while we transition to the next section. And just elaborate as well on some of the information that Sherry just shared here. One of the common things that we hear from a lot of our customers and prospects is, do you have our particular manufacturer that we work with? A lot of people are working with Siemens, Allen Bradley. Some people work with a cross-section of supplier data, manufacturer components, Schneider, so forth, Rittal, and that content has expanded significantly over the last year. Sherry and I have been working together for a couple of years now, and it was, I think in the early days with the electrical, there were a few 100,000 manufacturer components in the library system. Today there's over 13 million components, so it's increased significantly this past year. Chances are if you ask us about a particular supplier you're using, we'll be able to say, yeah, we offer that. So I'm going to close down this first poll where we're looking to see how you go about putting reports together in your company. Let me share this with you because it can be of interest to everybody as well. Bill of materials, not surprised there. That's something that is pretty common across everybody that we chat with. Wire tags tend to be one that people would like to do, but like Sherry was alluding to, tend to be a little bit time-consuming and counting them up, and sometimes the equipment doesn't exist in your company to make those easily. So not too surprised that we don't see anybody in the session today using those, but hopefully you'll see a vision where that could be something that you could do to make your systems even better and help with the manufacturing and service of them moving forward. Component labels, wireless, again, some of these latter items are things that people might think of as kind of extras, nice to have, but you just don't have the time to create them. All the things that Sherry is going to be showing are really when we get into the almost the auto magic easy button scenario with the tool.
Yeah.
Next report, next poll would be what type of tools are you using when you create this documentation? Give you a quick minute to answer that one, and we'll have one other one here. Well, we'll save the other one until you're done with your next section. How does that sound, Sherry?
Sure.
And probably not a big surprise here either. Let me close this out and share it. We see a lot of engineers that are using Excel to do especially the bill of materials, and we'll be getting into how SOLIDWORKS Electrical helps you automate that work and keep you out of Excel and Word as well. All right, back to you, Sherry.
All right, so let's look directly into reports then. I won't take much time, take your time up there. We'll just jump right into the schematic. Now, we've got all these devices here, and yes, you can see that I've got everything is pretty much labeled as far as some of the parts. Let's go ahead then and look at, how about this motor again? Do we have that motor fully prepared? So let me see. Yep, I've got that whole thing is still there. I didn't mess that up. Just wanted to check up before I started going into this section. We have a number of reports available to you. Notice that I have under reports 2 sections though. Reports are going to be the reports that you generate as a drawing or as something else. And what I mean by something else is notice that any report that we have, you can either generate a drawing and or export it to Excel. You can export it to text or CSV, and then of course you can also export the actual SQL query. Most people don't end up utilizing this very much unless they're into SQL programming. Now, if you notice, I've only got 4 different reports that I am showing right now, but we have a number of reports available, and it's just a matter of a checkbox. Whatever reports you're looking for. So if I'm looking for cable tags, maybe I'm looking for the wire tags. Notice I have the wire tags here already. I also could be looking for the list of all of the tags. So let me go ahead and turn those on here. And this is going to give you a view of what is actually happening in your software on this particular project. Notice that it actually gives me a quantity of how many I need. The reason it's giving me 2 is obviously you need a label at both ends of your cable, not just at one. The list of tags will give me a different thing. If I highlight one of these headers, it will actually sort by that header. And so what I find here is that I actually have the terminals, and then after the terminals, I have all of the components, and it tells me a quantity of 1. And then if I go further down, it will actually give me more of the components. Let's get down further down here. Here it is giving me my wire numbers, and it is telling me how many of those I need because, of course, as you daisy chain them out, if you're not using the European wire numbering and instead using equipotential numbering, you will have multitudes of a specific wire tag. And so you're not having to count any of this up. I know with electricians, I've had problems where they'll fat finger it. They'll create a whole bunch of garbage that you do not need. And then you end up throwing out all the extras that they printed because, of course, they printed out 40 when you only needed 20. All that type of stuff. It will help save a little bit of money. I mean, not huge amounts at that point, but you know, when you're dealing with all of that, you know, it starts adding up after a while. We also have things like this. Notice this is a wire list by style, and it's actually telling you that I've got a green wire, and it's giving me a length here because I can use it in 3D. I can also manually input a specific length, but it's giving me every type of style of wire that I have, and whether they're blue or whether they're red or whether they're orange. Bill of materials. This one is a common one. The common one here, I can do this report in many different ways. This is just a view of what's going on in your software because, of course, it's SQL driven. If I do something like hit generate and then tell it to create a bill of materials, it will then create a schematic. Now, if I come back here to my document browser and look at that, let me come over here. Notice I have 3 bills of materials now. Those bills of materials are separated out by location and then by manufacturer. That's the way I've got it set up. It's also telling me how many terminals I need. 32 terminals for this project. Here's where they're at. So I get some real quick access to all that information. Let me look at this other area here to see the list of wire tags we've already looked at, the list of cables we've already looked at. Notice that with the list of cables, I could even put in a length here and tell you where it's coming from and where it's going to, as well as what part. You can start utilizing this type of stuff all over, which is just going to make some real efficient reports for you because you're utilizing the libraries instead of typing them in. Now the second area is called the design rule checks. Now this works in conjunction with some of the other stuff that I was talking about where those OKs don't normally turn on. The software will check for you. We also have design rule checks, which are more audits. So that you can actually make sure, because of course nobody wants to buy something like this first one that I've highlighted. You don't want to send an order to purchasing if it's not actually used in your schematic. The second one that is one of my favorites here is that components with missing manufacturer's parts. You've put in all the information, created your wonderful schematic, but you forgot to assign a manufacturer. This one will allow you to know exactly what is happening. So if I look at the missing parts, manufacturer's parts assigned to the components, but they're not being used. Here's a couple here. Components with missing manufacturers. I have a number of them. Let's go ahead and add a part so that way I can show you. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to go ahead and just create a new sheet. Now, of course, a couple of things with the new sheets, because the new sheets are always a fun thing. If you are going to create a new schematic, I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to really mess things up because I'm going to put it right here. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is renumber my entire project, which I can do at any given point in time. When I do that, notice I can easily change from 15 to 8. And now if I want to go ahead and change those wire numbers and components so that they all match up to the new order, it's a matter of saying update mark for my entire project. So let me go ahead and do that. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to renumber the wires. Another quick, easy button. I'm going to recalculate those. All right, so now that I've got all of that, now all my numbers have changed. If you remember, let me go back to my sheet number 8, which is now number 9. Notice that everything here has changed. Not the cross-reference because I didn't go that far, but I did change all of these components, which means on my sheet number 6, of course, now all of those are showing. The motor starter being at page 9. On page 8, I'm going to go ahead and grab oh shoot, I don't even know what I want to grab. Let's just go ahead and delete this here. And let me go ahead and grab something else. Let's see if I've got a harness in here. Nope, let's see if I've got a cable. And hit find. Oh, we got a couple of them here. All right, I'm just going to grab one of them here and just drop this in and keep the existing marks. Sure, finish that out. All right, I have just a quick cable here, nothing major, but it has some componentry. Let me see what we've got here. All right, I've got a SOLIDWORKS part. I'm going to go ahead and delete the part. And say, okay, well, that's not what I wanted to do anyway. Go to that component. That's not wanting to let me do that. That's something new. I haven't ran across that before, but I will have to check into that. And if anybody's questioning that, I will give you a yell back and let you know why it's not actually doing that. Let's go ahead and just delete this symbol for a moment. And instead, I am going to just put in a new part. So let's go ahead and find a connector. Oh, gotta learn how to spell too. All right. And let's see if I can find a 3-pin. Nope. Okay. I'm going to go the hard way then. I'm going to actually go to my schematic and go into this insert symbol. And here I have the same type of options you had before, except I can actually look for the specifics. that I want. So if I want 3 circuits or 3 terminals here, I can come to 3 terminals, go to my connectors, because I must not have named any, and notice I have a number of them here. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab this one, and I'm going to drop it right there. Let me turn on my snap. Oh, snap instead. Notice that we have these drawing parameters down here at the bottom, so you can actually turn on all kinds of things that you're used to with your existing software, but you can also tell it whether it's metric, the grid spacing, all of that good fun stuff. So I'm going to drop it right there. Connect it up. Notice it connects right away, but of course this doesn't have a manufacturer. So when it doesn't have a manufacturer, I can go ahead now and go back to my design rule checks. Let me go back to my project, design rule check, and I have a component with missing manufacturers. Now that part number is 810P, and if you notice, here is 810P. Now with 2017, just to give you a highlight, we have a go-to statement that you can right-click right here, and you will be able to go directly to this device. So it becomes even better than what we've got with 2016. 2017, if you haven't made it to one of the rollouts, is they're being held all over right now. And you should find your nearest reseller there, which would be DDI or DSI, I would hope, and you'll be able to actually see those new rollouts, which again, as I mentioned before, we will also be having the same type of thing for electrical on November 15th. So with that, you get some reduced data entry and errors. You can also customize these reports to show only things that you want for specific assemblies, and everything's very easy and user-friendly. Dennis, would you like?
Thanks, Sherry. Good stuff here. This is something that we've been hearing a lot from users around that have been adopting electrical, that time spent on reports is something that consumes almost as much time as what they spend in doing the actual schematic design. So we'd like to get your input on that with this next poll question, if you'd be so good to answer that. And we're seeing right around 50-50 split for a lot of our current customers that they're telling us. So the ability to automate this information and generate it from a common list that's important for your company to be able to have, or maybe that, going back to one of those earlier poll questions, things that you don't do because you just don't have time, but they could improve the manufacturing or the service aspects. Another great benefit there that that you could benefit from the reporting capabilities that Sherry just showed. Let me share the results here that we've got with this and see that either everybody took my suggestion or that just tends to be the way that most of this type of work rolls out for everybody. I know back in the day when I was doing it, it was probably about a 50-50 split as well for me in those days. Sherry, I think the other thing that you pointed out that's important to always remember is that sometimes, you know, the cost of things isn't necessarily as important and doesn't amount to as much as maybe perhaps the time that we spend to do them and what you don't gain by not doing some things within a corporation as well. I think that'd be the one takeaway that I'd like to really emphasize in this section for everybody that's attending here. With that, let me close this poll and you can get back to the wrapping up with the last section here.
All right, yeah, the last section we are dealing with is just the collaboration, and of course there's always changes that are being made throughout projects continuously. I've shown you a little bit about that, especially when we are dealing with, dealing with adding those pages. If you think about the amount of time that it probably takes you, if you were to have to update every sheet just because You added a sheet in the middle. Now, yes, you can name it A or B if it's something that you've already created, but being able to add a wire or a page number in the middle of your project as you're designing because you've decided that the PLC needs to be bigger and you want more sheets, or Joe next door decided that he wants another motor circuit and you don't have a spot on this existing page. Those types of time savings become critical, especially when you're dealing with a deadline, that here all of a sudden you no longer have those. So this collaboration, you can make changes all over the place. Notice down here I have these two wires. And these two wires actually are going to marry up to this following page here where I've got the start of my PLC. So it's just basically my 24-volt circuit. Now, if you notice that I've got a wire number already here, I've got a wire number already here, and on page 6, of course, I have two separate wire numbers. Well, the thing that's nice about this is we have this thing in our software as well for creating graphics. And these creating graphics, we can create a conflict. And all I have to do is make it visible. And with that, I can go ahead and simply add origin destination arrows. Now, origin destination arrows can be miserable when you've got very large projects, especially when you're dealing with 100 pages or more. Here you can move between drawings very quickly, very easily. If you keep the wire numbers the same because you're manually putting them in, you can use an auto connect. Or you can do what I'm doing here, which is a single insertion. And notice I can pick any end wire. But the minute I do, it will now only let me attach to that same type of wire. Mind you, the coloring is for the viewer or for the user, but the software is also recognizing in the background what type of wire it is. So when you do that, it's going to allow you to now connect up, and I can create a second one. I'm going to go ahead and create this one here for you. Notice that I now have some big blue dots. Those big blue dots are automatically highlighting to the user that there is an equipotential conflict. I have this thing here for solve equipotential conflicts. Notice that it knows that it is now connected between two wires, N3 and N4. It is now asking me, what do I want to do with the wires? I'm going to go ahead and change it to N3. And the same holds true here for this one. Now, when I go ahead and solve, I'm going to tell it it's 0623. And if I go to that, these arrows are also hyperlinked. So if I go right there, you will now see that this wire number is changed. Now, changing wire numbers, that is absolutely a nightmare in some of the packages. Here I can simply come up here and say edit wire mark. And I'm going to put in a number, a letter here. Oh, I already hit OK by accident. I am going to come in here and I am going to add a new wire number that is, let's see here, what do I want to add it to? It is coming up with that, and that is not what I want. I'm going to change this to manual, and I'm going to go ahead and type in something that you could never type in twice if you tried. Excuse me. Look at that. All right. If I go to the wire number now, that we would be utilizing next, notice that it carries through the software. If I zoom down here to where that next origin destination is on page 9, here it is here. The amount of time that you can save yourself in this aspect alone is huge. Terminal strips are the same way. I know that terminal strips are something that people do not like to do because it is such a waste of time. People have so much trouble doing them. I want to show you one quick thing here. Look at the terminal strip. You can edit the terminal strip. You can see how it is actually working, how it is connected up. Not only that, but you can also generate drawings from here. This will create an automatic drawing for you. Once you have created this drawing, you can see here, let me go ahead and close that, close this. This terminal strip gives you everything that you are needing. It gives you wire numbers, where it's going to, where it's going from, cables, how it's getting connected up from the cables to the devices. These are all automatic things. This is not something that you have to do anything more than push a button. And with that, I am going to go ahead and talk about those improved communications. You're not having to do all that checking, creating those Excel spreadsheets very quick to add to purchasing just by sending them off, or maybe to do your Lamicoid tags. So under design, we saw that you can definitely do some reduced design time through doing some efficient designing with fewer errors. The same type of thing holds true with the project management, that you're not having to go through and jump from software to software. Our existing software, SQL, will take care of that. The reports, obviously, there is reduced data entry and errors here, because you do not have to worry about that as well. And then, of course, we've got the collaboration, which is dealing with improved communications across the board. Again, less data entry. More types of information available to you. Dennis, would you like to put up the last poll?
Yep, we had a couple of one as we wrap up here. There's 3 more. Just looking for some input from you as to what you thought about this webinar and future content, so that we can put together programs that really meet your needs moving forward as well. Just reemphasize that a lot of things that Sherry showed today are repetitive, time-consuming tasks. And while you might not do them, they could potentially add more value to both you and your customers. We've seen that with a lot of our folks that we're working with here in Michigan that are in the automation market. They have to do deliverable packages, and being able to put out that extra reports, especially towards the end of this session that Sherry shared, really start to add value that distinguish your company from the competition. So we've got this one will close out here. Looks like everybody's replied there. And let me pop up a little bit of feedback so that we know what's the best way to reach you in the future. What types of social media or other electronic means you try and use to stay in touch with this information, and assume that would still be something that you'd like to receive from us, or a method that you'd like available. Looks like email is the #1 tool there for that. And last of all, some input on anything else that you'd like to see us covering, and what ways you'd like to get that information. We've got a variety of different things. We interact a lot with the user groups here in Michigan and Indiana. We do a lot of presentations for them. YouTube is getting more and more popular, and we can do some very focused content in that area that provides some feedback for you on particular topics that you might find of interest, and we can put those out for reference. Or if you have a library that you'd like to start to accumulate of how to use these tools, if you're a customer, we'd love to get your feedback on what you think of those things. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get back with Sherry or I. Close that out. And that's our contact information that you can reach out to either of us with further questions if you think about something after you get going with the rest of your day here. Do appreciate your time, and we hope that you found this really helpful. Sherry, anything wrapping up?
Nope. Have a great day, and thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Take care, everybody.